Imagine this: a young woman stands at the back of a small chapel. Her white dress catches the soft light filtering through stained glass, the organ begins to play, and every eye turns toward her. But she doesn't step forward alone. On her left stands an elderly nun in a simple habit, eyes shining with quiet pride. On her right is a stranger in her mid-40s. Trembling, tear-streaked. Gripping the bouquet so tightly, her knuckles turn white. The guests freeze. Whispers ripple like wine through dry leaves. Who is that woman? Why is she here? And then, halfway down the aisle, something impossible happens. The groom leaves the altar. He walks straight toward them. Not in anger, not in confusion. But with open arms and a voice so gentle it cuts through every murmur in the room. If you've ever felt unwanted, if you've ever wondered whether anyone could truly see you after years of being invisible, if the idea of second chances still stirs something deep inside your chest, then stay with me. Because this isn't just a wedding story, this is the moment a lifetime of pain turned into something beautiful enough to make even the most guarded heart believe again. If this opening has already touched something in your heart, even if, for a second, you felt that flicker of hope that kindness and grace can still win, then please, don't keep scrolling. Stop for just 2 seconds, hit that like button, and subscribe if you have not. You'll be helping carry stories like this to thousands of people who really feel alone in the world. Your small click today could be someone else's reminder tomorrow that they are worth loving. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart. Hello beautiful souls, and welcome back to my channel. This is your weekly reminder that kindness still moves mountains, heals hearts, and rewrites endings. I'm so grateful you're here today. If you're new, this is the place where we share real stories, the kind that don't make headlines because they're quiet, but they change lives forever. Today's story carries the title you just read. She grew up in an orphanage. What happened on her wedding day will shock you. I promise you, the shock isn't a scandal, it isn't betrayal, it's grace, the kind of grace that can only come after decades of carrying an ache most people never see. So, take a deep breath, maybe grab a tissue, and let's walk this aisle together. Because what happened to Amara isn't just her story. It might just be the mirror your own heart has been waiting for. Amara never knew the sound of her mother's voice calling her name as a baby. She never felt the gentle press of a father's hand on her forehead when she had a fever. The only birthday she could be sure of was the one typed in faded ink on her intake form at St. Mary's Children's Home, a small brick building tucked among pine trees in rural Georgia. She arrived in the middle of a rain-soaked November night. Wrapped in a thin hospital blanket that still smelled faintly of antiseptic. No note, no name pinned to her sleeper, just a newborn left at the iron gates like a secret too heavy to carry anymore. The nuns named her Amara. It means grace in some African languages. They chose it quietly, almost like a prayer over her sleeping face, because every child who arrives without a welcome deserves at least that one beautiful word spoken over them. Growing up inside those walls taught Amara lessons most children don't learn until much later. She learned that affection was rationed, there were too many children and not enough laps. She learned that volunteers came on bright Saturday mornings full of smiles and promises, then disappeared by Monday without saying goodbye. She learned that some kids got chosen. New families arrived in clean minivans, paperwork in hand, eyes searching the playroom for their child. Amara was rarely the one they noticed. She was quiet, observant. The girl who already knew how to fold herself small, so no one felt burdened by her longing. But she never became bitter. Instead, she became the steady heartbeat among the younger girls. She braided cornrows before school when fingers were too little to manage. She whispered bedtime stories under flashlight beams after lights out, tales of princesses who saved themselves. She helped with math homework even when her own eyes burned from studying late. Sister Evelyn, the head caretaker with silver hair always pulled into a neat bun, used to sit beside her on the porch swing some evenings. "Your past is a chapter, Amara," she'd say in her low, steady voice. Not the whole book. Amara wrote those words on the inside cover of every notebook she owned. She traced them with her finger when the loneliness pressed hardest. Still, the question lived under her skin like a second heartbeat. Why? Why had she been the one left behind? Was she too loud as a baby? Too fussy? Not lovable enough even at 3 days old? The thoughts arrived most often at night, when the dormitory was quiet except for the soft breathing of 20 other girls and the distant creak of the old building settling. At 18, she aged out. 2 suitcases. 1 small scholarship from a local church that believed in second chances. A Greyhound bus ticket to the nearest community college town. She worked the night shift at a 24-hour diner, pouring coffee for truckers at 3 a.m., wiping down counters that never stayed clean, smiling through exhaustion. Classes during the day, library until closing. That's where she met Daniel. He sat 2 rows behind her in Intro to Literature. He noticed her because she was always early, notebook open, pen ready, highlighter already uncapped. She noticed him because he listened, really listened, when other students spoke. When the professor asked a question, Daniel never rushed to answer. He waited. Thought. Then offered something kind and considered. One Tuesday he slid into the seat beside her before class. "You always bring extra pens," he said with a small smile. "Mind if I borrow one if mine dies?" She handed him a blue ballpoint without a word. He kept it. And the next week, he brought her a black coffee, no sugar, the way she took it. He'd paid attention. Their first real conversation happened outside the library at dusk. Fireflies blinking in the grass. The air smelled like cut hay and coming rain. He asked about her family. She gave the short version. "I grew up in a children's home." Most people changed the subject. Daniel didn't. He simply nodded and asked what that was like. Not with pity. With curiosity, with respect. 3 months later, he invited her to Sunday dinner at his parents' house. She almost refused. The thought of stepping into a home filled with framed photos, inside jokes, and the smell of roast chicken made her stomach twist. What if they asked questions she couldn't answer? What if they saw how out of place she felt? But Daniel took her hand in the car and said, "They're going to love you. And if they don't, we'll eat fast and leave." He was joking. But the promise underneath wasn't, "I won't let you feel alone." When they walked through the door, his mother wrapped her in a hug before Amara could even say hello. His father asked about her classes and listened. Really listened. No one asked why she had no baby pictures to show. No one treated her like a charity case. They simply made room at the table. For the first time, Amara felt what belonging might taste like. 3 years later, under the same sprawling oak tree where they'd had their first real date, Daniel knelt, no flashy ring, just a simple gold band with a tiny diamond. "I don't want to build a life without you," he said. "Will you marry me?" She said yes through tears she couldn't stop. Wedding planning should have been joyful. Instead, it cracked open old wounds. Forms that asked for father of the bride, mother of the bride. Traditions she'd only seen in movies. Who would walk her down the aisle? Who would sit in the front row, on her side? She told herself it didn't matter. She had survived worse. She could walk alone. But deep down, the little girl who once waited at the gate still hoped someone would come for her. 1 week before the wedding, a plain white envelope arrived. No stamp. Hand-delivered. Dropped through the mail slot of her small apartment sometime after midnight. Amara opened it with shaking fingers. Inside, 1 sheet of lined paper. Handwriting carefully, almost childlike in its effort to be neat. "I have watched from a distance for years. I never stopped loving you. I was young, scared, and alone when I left you at St. Mary's. I regret that choice every single day. If you will allow me, I would like to see you on your wedding day. Mom. The room tilted. She read it again. And again. The word mom stared back like a foreign language. Orphanage records had always said, no known relatives. She had built an entire adulthood around that sentence. She had told herself closure wasn't possible, so she stopped looking for it. Anger came first, hot and fast. How dare she? After 25 years of silence? After every Christmas with no card, every graduation with no camera flash, every time the ache woke her at 3 a.m.? But beneath the fury, a quieter voice. The same voice that used to whisper maybe she had a reason when Amara was 12. She hid the letter in her nightstand drawer. Didn't tell Daniel. Not yet. She reread it every night that week. The handwriting trembled in places, like the pen had hesitated. There was no phone number. No demand. Only hope. Fragile. Almost apologetic. The night before the wedding she finally showed Daniel. They sat on the edge of the bed. Lamplight soft on their faces. He read in silence. Then folded the paper carefully. Placed it back in her hands. Whatever you choose, he said, you won't face it alone. No pressure. No opinion. Just partnership. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and cool. Amara stood in the bridal suite at the little chapel. Sister Evelyn had arrived early, insisting on helping with the veil. She fussed gently, smoothing fabric, murmuring prayers under her breath. A soft knock. Sister Evelyn opened the door. And there she was. Mid-40s. Dark hair pulled into a low ponytail. Eyes swollen from crying. Wearing a simple navy dress she had probably chosen with great care. Hands empty except for one small clutch. Amara's breath caught. The woman didn't step forward. She waited, like someone asking permission to exist in the room. Sister Evelyn looked at Amara. A silent question. Amara nodded once. The woman entered. Stopped a few feet away. Her voice came out small. I didn't know if you'd let me stay. Amara couldn't speak yet. So many words fought inside her throat. Instead she reached out, slowly, and took the bouquet from Sister Evelyn's hands. Then, she offered her left arm to the nun. And her right arm, to the woman who had given her life. Neither woman hesitated. They linked arms. One on each side. Amara exhaled, shaky. I'm ready. The chapel doors opened. Pachelbel's cannon floated out, gentle strings and organ. Guests stood. A collective breath held. Amara stepped forward. Sister Evelyn on her left, small, steady, radiating decades of quiet love. Her biological mother on her right, shaking so visibly that the flowers trembled. Gasps spread through the pews like ripples on water. Daniel's cousins leaned forward. His mother covered her mouth. A few phones were lowered, forgotten. Halfway down the aisle, Daniel moved. He didn't wait at the altar like tradition demanded. He stepped down, robe brushing the carpet, and walked toward them. The music faltered for half a second as the organist registered the change. Then continued, softer now. Daniel reached them in the center of the aisle. He first shook Sister Evelyn's hand, gentle, reverent. Thank you for raising her when no one else could. Sister Evelyn's eyes filled. She squeezed his fingers. Then Daniel turned to Amara's mother. He looked straight into her tear-streaked face. And in a voice low enough that only the four of them could hear, he said. Thank you for bringing her into this world. The words landed like sunlight breaking through clouds. Amara's mother let out a small, broken sound, half sob, half relief. She reached out instinctively, then pulled back, unsure if she was allowed. Daniel opened his arms. Not wide. Just enough. She stepped into them. A brief, trembling hug. The first time anyone had held her in connection with Amara. Amara watched it happen, and something inside her chest cracked open, not in pain, but in release. They continued forward together now, 4 people instead of 3. Daniel returned to the front just enough to let Amara reach the altar. But he never let go of her hand. At the front, before the officiant could begin, Amara turned to face the guests. Her voice shook at first, then steadied. "I grew up believing I was unwanted," she said. The words echoed softly in the hush. "Today, I choose to believe something different. I was loved by a woman who wasn't ready and raised by people who stepped in when she couldn't. I stand here because of both." She looked left at Sister Evelyn, who nodded, tears streaming freely. Then, right, at her mother, who wept openly now, shoulders shaking. "I don't have all the answers," Amara continued. "I don't know what tomorrow looks like. But today, I'm not walking alone anymore. Not a single dry eye in the room." Daniel's father blew his nose loudly into a handkerchief. A little cousin in the 3rd row whispered, "Why is everyone crying?" Her mother whispered back, "Because sometimes love looks like this." The officiant smiled through tears. "Let's begin." The reception unfolded under string lights in the church garden. Fireflies blinked in the warm June dusk. Tables were pushed close together, no empty chairs. Amara and her mother found a quiet corner near the rose bushes. No dramatic speeches. No apologies scripted for effect. Just honesty. Her mother, whose name was Lena, explained in halting sentences. 17. Homeless. Escaping a house where fists replaced words. Giving birth in a county hospital with no one beside her. Walking to St. Mary's in the dark, believing the nuns would give Amara what she never could, safety. "I thought leaving you was the only loving thing I could do," Lena whispered. "I was wrong about so much. But I was never wrong about loving you." Amara listened. Anger still flickered, she didn't pretend it didn't. But resentment had lost its sharpest edge. They exchanged numbers that night. No promises of instant closeness. Just a beginning. In the months that followed, small steps. Coffee on Saturday mornings. Long walks in the park. Stories traded slowly, like handing fragile glass back and forth. Lena began volunteering at St. Mary's once a month. Reading to the little ones. Braiding hair. The way Amara once had. Sister Evelyn called it the circle coming round. Daniel's family folded Lena in quietly. His mother sent her recipes. His father invited her to 4th of July barbecues. No questions about the past. Just a room at the table. 2 years later, Amara and Daniel's first child arrived. A girl. They named her Evelyn, after the nun who had mothered so many. Lena held her granddaughter in the hospital room, tears falling onto the soft blanket. She looked at Amara and whispered, "Thank you for letting me be here." Amara kissed her mother's forehead. "Thank you for coming back." The ripple kept spreading. Amara started a small scholarship fund at the orphanage, funded partly by wedding gifts redirected with guests' blessing. It helps older teens transition to college, the way her church once helped her. Lena went back to school at a community college, taking classes in social work. She wants to help young mothers find safe paths. Paths that don't require leaving their babies behind. And every year on their anniversary, Amara and Daniel return to that oak tree. They sit on the grass. They read the letter again, the one that arrived in a plain white envelope. They don't reread it with pain anymore. They read it with wonder. Because sometimes, the most shocking thing isn't tragedy. It's redemption. Right after this, I have to ask you something. After hearing that she grew up in an orphanage. What happened on her wedding day will shock you. I'm curious. Have you ever experienced or witnessed a moment where someone from the past reappeared, and instead of destruction, healing followed? Or maybe you were the one who chose to step back into someone's life after years away, scared, but hoping for grace. Drop your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and sometimes your words become the seed of our next video. Let's keep reminding each other that second chances still happen. Stories like Amara's don't just warm our hearts for a moment, they quietly rearrange how we see ourselves. Here are the truths this journey etched into my own soul, and maybe they'll speak to yours too. First, your beginning does not define your ending. Amara entered the world wrapped in abandonment, but she didn't stay there. Our origins may shape the first chapters, sometimes painfully, but they never get to write the last page. Whatever your starting line looked like, you are still writing. Keep going. Second, family is so much more than biology. Sister Evelyn and the staff at St. Mary's poured love into Amara without DNA tying them together. Love, presence, consistency, and showing up are what build family. If you've ever felt like an outsider in your own story, look around. The people choosing you every day are your family, too. Third, forgiveness is freedom. Not because it erases what happened. Not because it excuses pain. But because it releases its grip on your future. When Amara chose to walk beside Lena instead of turning away, she stepped out of victimhood and into strength. You don't have to forget. You just have to decide that the past no longer gets to drive. Fourth, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it looks quiet. Like opening a letter when every instinct screams to burn it. Like linking arms when your heart is racing. Like letting someone who hurt you try again. If you've been brave in small, unseen ways lately, I see you. That quiet courage changes everything. Fifth, real love meets you in the middle. When Daniel stepped down from the altar, he showed what partnership looks like. Marriage, any deep relationship, isn't about standing on opposite sides waiting for the other person to cross. It's about both people walking toward each other, especially when the ground feels uncertain. And finally, healing is a process, not a single moment. The wedding day didn't magically erase 25 years of ache. It opened a door. Real healing happened in coffee dates, hard conversations, tears on park benches, and patience when old wounds flared again. If you're in the middle of your own slow healing, be gentle with yourself. Progress doesn't have to be loud to be real. So here's my quiet challenge for you today. Look for one small way to choose grace. Maybe it's forgiving someone, even just in your heart. Maybe it's reaching out to someone who feels forgotten. Maybe it's simply believing in yourself that your story isn't over yet. Because if a girl who is left at an orphanage gate can walk down the aisle between her past and her future, then there is still hope for every single one of us. As the music fades at the end of that wedding video in my mind, I'm left with this quiet truth. The most shocking moments aren't always the loudest. Sometimes they're the softest. A trembling hand reaching out. A groom stepping down from tradition to meet his bride halfway. A daughter choosing love over resentment, and in doing so, healing 3 generations at once. Amara once believed she was defined by what was taken from her. Today, she knows she is defined by what she chose to keep and what she chose to give. And that is the real miracle. Thank you from the deepest part of me for staying until the end. For letting this story touch your heart. For agreeing with me that kindness and grace can still rewrite endings. If this moved you, would you do one small, beautiful thing? Share this video with just one person who needs a reminder of hope today. Maybe a friend who feels forgotten, a family member carrying old pain, or even someone you haven't spoken to in years. Your share could be the envelope that arrives at exactly the right moment. And if you want to keep receiving these stories every week, stories that remind us that humanity hasn't given up, then hit subscribe and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss what's coming next. Speaking of which, in our very next video, were sharing a story about a stranger who paid for an entire family's groceries when their card was declined, and how that single act came back to him years later in the most unexpected way. You won't want to miss it. Until then, be gentle with yourself. And be the reason someone else believes in goodness again. I'll see you soon, with more light. Much love.